Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third day of the Just Transition Platform Week and to our event about energy communities. It's wet and grey in Brussels, so I have a bit of a blue sky behind to cheer up the atmosphere of this event. So we have a busy agenda, so I go straight into it. Just wanted to tell you, we have a Slido for you. So questions to panelists, to our speakers are very welcome. Please go to Slido. Please introduce the hashtag Coal Regions in Transition Energy and feel free to ask any questions, and we will come back to questions at the end of the session. Well, not in fact, in the middle of the session. So that's it. And you can submit your question, you can vote on other questions, and the most popular questions will make it to the Q&A in this session. Thank you very much, and we move on. So I will tell you very briefly what are energy communities, and then we have representatives of a number of energy communities and one think tank to tell you more. So energy communities is a citizens-led it's a mobilization of citizens in energy transition. So either citizens mobilize for renewable energy or they mobilize for energy efficiency. And when I say citizens, I mean citizens, individuals, but also other local actors. It can be local authorities, it can be NGOs, it can be companies, this whole concept, in fact, is about democratizing the generation of energy. So energy does not only have to come from big companies, but can actually come from individuals. We can group together to generate energy independently. And why this concept is attractive for coal regions? It's for two reasons. The coal regions in transition, it's all about mobilizing citizens. And hence the concept of energy communities very much fits in that context, because if you mobilize citizens for the coal phase out, we can also mobilize them to generate a new energy. Citizens and of course many citizens, many people in the coal regions that are going through a transition are already experts on energy because they work in the fossil energy sector. Hence, they might be very motivated and very keen to get engaged in the renewable energy sector, in the future energy sector. And of course, and not negligible, these energy communities also create jobs. They create economic activity because they can grow. And what starts as a few citizens can be an association which attracts investments from outside of the region and can create a lot of local jobs. Energy communities are governed by EU energy legislation. They are a legal entity. They can have different forms, and they can also be a way how to. Energy communities are non-profit type of activity. Hence, all benefits are reinvested back to the region and back to the original, energy efficiency renewables. And we have different categories which are governed in energy legislation. Either we are talking about citizens' energy communities or we talk about renewable energy communities. They are a bit different, but the principle is always the same. Next slide. Here is an example how it works. And of course, maybe this is a bit complicated, but this is the example how it works to generate jobs, to generate impact for the region. You can do the same as the 5 citizens who group together. And then, of course, the whole thing is a bit simpler. But in principle, members set up a cooperative, an energy community. They decide on the legal form. They decide on the type of the energy community. And they invest into renewable energy, for example, a wind farm or a solar park, or they install solar panels on their houses. And they will be selling, and of course they can either produce electricity for themselves or they will be selling it and making profit. And the profit is reinvested back into the energy community to increase the investment. And for a citizens' energy community, for example, people in a city who have spare money and they would like to become part of the green transition, they can invest in this community. So that's how it works a bit more in a bit more sophisticated way. And my last slide is to show you how it works in practice, how it can look in practice. Next slide, please. This is a concrete example of an energy community from Germany, which is one of the first and quite famous. It's called Elektrizitätswerke Schönau. And what started, in fact, it was a village which suffered from depopulation. Young people were leaving. And so the citizens, they thought, what can we do to make our place more attractive? And also how can we occupy ourselves? And so they created this energy community, which grew, and from installing solar panels and renovating houses, they grew so much that currently they cover, their members are from across the entire Germany. And so people not living in the village started investing in this energy community. It became a huge success. And yeah, I mean, it's a way how to engage people from outside the region, and it was a way how to activate the village and make it yet again an attractive place to live. So it's an inspiration example. So this was for introduction. And now I'm going to pass the floor to our speakers who represent existing energy communities across the EU, and also one think tank which is specifically interested in specializes in selling the idea of energy communities to co-regions in Greece. So we start in Portugal. Our first speaker is Pedro Barata, who will present you one of the first energy cooperatives that was created in Portugal. Pedro, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele, and very nice being here, representing Copernico. Copernico was the first energy cooperative in Portugal, and in fact, to date, is still the only energy cooperative in Portugal. We were established by a group of 16 friends who were interested in energy democracy and energy access issues, and wanted to essentially own their own power, to put it this way. Because of several difficult bureaucratic hurdles, they settled on establishing an energy cooperative. There was no such thing as a legal platform for an energy community. And they started with this idea that because the financial hurdle to become a commercializer of electricity was very high, the first thing that they started to do was to look for investment in renewable energy projects, and to do that with a social investment platform. So they started looking for projects everywhere in Portugal. Next slide. So that was 2013. We're now 2021, 8 years. Actually, yesterday was our 8th anniversary. And what have we achieved, and what are we doing? So we have already set up over 2 megawatts peak of installed solar facilities in around 20 different social institutional projects. As of 2021, we have finally, after overcoming a series of hurdles in the legislation, we've become a provider of electricity. So my own contracts are with my cooperative. Unfortunately, the one thing that, and the ideal that we had of being a, let's say, fully integrated operation where my power would actually come from Copernicus projects isn't yet true. What we do is we have on one side the investment business, and on the other side the commercialization business. We are also involved in several projects related to energy innovation and around energy communities. Next slide. So basically, this is what we did for the first 6 years. We invested in renewable energy and social sector. What is this, the social sector? We're talking about everything from old retirement houses for the elderly, schools, different types of schools, and on occasion, local government offices. We've been extremely successful at this investment platform, to the point where One of our major complaints from our members is not even being able to invest because, believe it or not, some of our investments, always relatively small, but 40 to 50,000 euros, once they go up online, they are exhausted in less than 5 minutes. So if you're late, you simply cannot invest anymore. That's how incredibly popular the investment is. Next slide, please. Right, so here you see 3 different installations and the type of installation that we're looking at. These are usually, like I said, social institutions. In one case, we're looking at a daycare center for students, and in 2 other places, we're talking about retirement homes, mostly in the north of Portugal. Next slide. So at one point we decided then to move into commercialization. Why? Because that was always the plan. That was always what we had wanted. We managed to find a little bit of a not exactly a loophole, but a twist in the legislation that allowed us to present the guarantees that the energy regulator was requiring us, and so we're now fully a commercial unit. What our aims is to make it citizen-centric, so that we spend a lot of time explaining to our clients everything from the inordinately complex tariff system in Portugal to make it as fair, as transparent in terms of our pricing. We have regular meetings with our members to explain to them what the situation of the cooperative is with relation to this particular business. And we are, by law, a not-for-profit enterprise, so everything that we make as profit is put back into the business. Next slide, please. Finally, we have a range of other services that we provide. We support cooperative members with advice on energy saving. We've just established a partnership with an electric mobility provider, so with discount rates for people who want to charge their EV at home. And we're supporting, much to coming to the point here in this session, we support local renewable energy communities. On a wider scale, we're engaged in projects such as PowerPool to address energy poverty, and we try to address the energy balance in the gender balance in whatever we do. Next slide. So we're also, yesterday, besides being our 8th anniversary, was the launch of our first community project. It's located in Lisbon. It's a condominium. It's still ongoing because what we have experienced is not only a very complicated set of legal requirements, but also the difficulties in actually coordinating across all of the potential members of the community in this condominium. So it's a very recent project. It's in fact ongoing. We are going live, put it this way, this week. The current potential size of the community is across the entire building that you see on the slide. That's 130 apartments. Next slide. I think we can skip this one. So again, next slide. So the idea here within this compiled project is to transform 8 self-consumption projects into common areas of condominium into one collective self-consumption system. And what we do with the compiled project is to supply technical tools to test different solutions and scalability. We're trying to build new business models and in the end form an energy community. Next slide. So I won't go into all of this. This is a very long slide, but I think what we're looking for is to harness the key benefits of this concept of the energy community. That goes from the value proposition of having reduced the electricity bills, CO2 emissions, because we're obviously investing in renewable energy, and increased citizen involvement. The key activities that we're doing is PV self-consumption and generated electricity, but ancillary to that, we're doing a lot of education and support activities. And the key resources that we're putting into this project is obviously the rooftop PV and the installation, but obviously Copernicus members' resources are putting into the community project as well. Next slide. So main challenges to date are the existing legislation, the consumer awareness, and it is a challenge even to build a cooperation model among potential members. A lot of the condominium inhabitants have some, so we do have a few champions inside the condominium structure, but obviously there are a lot of people who have still a lot of qualms about the entire project. How do we overcome the challenges that we've had? A lot of it with dialogue with government that is ongoing. The government has just issued a new set of regulation, quite extensive regulation, 300 pages of it that we are just trying to simulate. And we're obviously involved in a lot of capacity building across partners. To the question that was put, can your model or energy community be replicated in other regions, countries? Quite fairly, it is just too soon to know. But one thing is for certain, it's in our DNA to say that we're willing to share any lessons learned, the good and the bad. And with that, I close. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pedro. This was super interesting. And I mean, for me, this fits absolutely perfectly with the whole idea of the just transition in the coal regions, because we are trying to encourage new entrepreneurship and to encourage new opportunities for people. And this is all what you are doing. And in fact, you have a social purpose in what you are doing, and that's social and environmental purpose, which is great. And again, it fits very well. And in fact, the Just Transition Fund could finance this type of activities. That's important to stress because if the objective is to generate renewable energy efficiency, and the purpose is also just transition, in that case, this will be financeable under the Just Transition Fund. And so that's important for our participants to be aware of as well. So now we move on to Slovenia. And we have Tomi Medved, who will talk about a project called Compile, and he will cover two concrete communities in Luce and Křiževci in Croatia and in Slovenia. So, floor is yours, Tomi.
Thank you, Adela, for the word. And first, I would like to thank also Pedro for his presentation and making an introduction into our Compile project. They are partners, we are the coordinators, and I will quickly present, and I hope in an interesting way, what we are doing in Compile, especially in those two pilot sites. So I would like to ask the moderator to move to the next slide. And another one. So just to give you a quick facts about Luce pilot site. Basically, this is an alpine village located in Upper Savinja Valley in Slovenia. And this village is basically in a hilly area, and it has a problem with network, especially with the security of supply due to the frequent power failures, due to the snow, weather events, other weather events. And also the capacity of the network is also quite low. So the idea was from the let's say pilot site champion, how he could increase the PV production, increase the security of supply, increase the self-sufficiency, and how to also engage the neighbors in helping them and to engage them and to reach as a let's say as a community this kind of level of self-sufficiency. So with the Compile project, which we started, we joined forces, we applied, and we got the funding. And I would say we were quite successful in getting to this to the goal, especially if we move to the next slide. where we got the financing. So we installed additional PVs. We engaged the community members to invest into the additional PVs. We invested in a community battery, in home batteries. We developed new tools for managing the grid. And altogether, the whole investment was around 450,000 euros. Of course, this would not be possible without external funding. But in general, we wanted to show an example of what could be done in the technological sense and also in the social sense. But still, the average investment per citizens was around 10,000 euros. So that also presents quite a lot of investment, a range of 100,000 just from the village itself. So if we move to the next slide. Yeah, so the idea, the goals were first to establish the first energy community in Slovenia, to show that we can increase the security of supply and increase the self-sufficiency also in the congested local network with high penetration of RES. We want to show that we can improve also the network conditions by managing in a community way the whole village. And of course, the fourth, maybe the most important one, is to basically gain interest of citizens in investing in renewables, investing in new technologies, and also to motivate them to start cooperating also on other local issues that arise in the area. If we move to the next slide. So here is the list of what has been done in that sense. So we installed 102 kilowatt of additional PV. To be the most important thing, which is not stressed out here, at the beginning, the DSO said you can install only 10 kilowatt of PV in that grid because it's so congested, it's so weak. But we got an exemption and we said, okay, let us install how much we want, and let us install also a new way our controllers and inverters with upgraded inverter control, and let us manage the grid by ourselves. In that sense, you just give us the technical limits where we cannot, that we should respect. And this is a success story because we installed 10 times more than it was additionally foreseen, or let's say allowed, and the system is not crashing. It's working better than before. What was also done with the help of DSO, I mean, we need to really say thanks to Elektroceli, our local DSO. They upgraded also the transformer station. We installed 5 home batteries. We installed the community battery of 150 kilowatt and 330 kilowatt hours, which is quite big. Then we connected the PVs and the home batteries with our developed tool called Home Rule. We also, like I mentioned, with the, let's say, grid community, with the community-based operation supported by Grid Rule, we manage all those home batteries, the community batteries, and the PV, plus additional 9 home EV chargers that were added within within XFlex project. So we have a setup in that sense of a village of the future. And we really can show with the real results that I'll show in the next slides that we can utilize our existing infrastructure much better than before. So the next slide, on the next slide, you can see on this slide, you can actually see, sorry, go back. Second. On this slide, you can see how it started with the community members, how we installed the PVs. Then you have the home batteries, and then you can see how we did the community battery, which is this big white box. But on the right side, you can see how, because we are in Alpine Village, we also put a nice facade. So a wooden facade that it fits into the environment better. And you can also see that we installed also additional public EV charging that everybody can use. So it's something that the whole town benefited, not just that village. And you can see also the transformer station that need to be upgraded due to the energy community, due to the community battery, and the possibility of islanding mode, which is a novelty, is a first of a kind in this part of Europe, where in case of a network failure, the community battery can provide a power supply for around 2 days. But even more important is that we also supply the communication tower and the fire station. So this brings additional level of security for the whole town in that sense. So there is a social improvement also in that sense. This was a recommendation from the mayor, and we said, well, that is a great example how energy community can also benefit, and this kind of projects can benefit the whole society in that sense. If we go on the next slide. So, like mentioned, with more efficient management and operation of the low voltage network, we installed 5 times more than originally it said here, because through the first initial discussion was 10 kilowatt. Then they said, we will let you 20, but then we had ended with 100. So increase of self-sufficiency, I would say. So production of rest increase 181%, and in some households for 320, so tripled, which resulted in savings more than 2,200 euros. Like I said, improved security of electricity supply and stronger community relationship. And the next slide shows the actual measurements. If we move, yeah. So in this slide, you can see the actual measurements, and the dotted green line would be a production without compile, and the full green line is production with compile. So you can see these scissors are going to spread even more in the next years, and I can say that we feel very proud that we can show this kind of results, and to everybody that can come to Slovenia, we show this like Lucia as an example what can be done in the existing grid. So the challenges, if you move to the next slide, there are still some challenges in developing the energy communities in Slovenia, and especially in this region in general. The main problem with this is that they need to have the same supplier, they need to be connected to the same transformer station. Then there are some, but for the villages, let's say, it's complicated, but it's quite simple. But when we move to complexity of community self-consumption in multi-apartment buildings, the laws are very, very complex. So you need 3 times as much documentation and obtaining various consents, which is very time consuming at the moment. And I hope this will change in the next years. If we move to the next slide. So let's say success factors. We showed that there is a high potential for future implementation of these kind of solutions that we are developing in the rural low voltage network, not only in Slovenia, but actually worldwide. There are a lot of, we are cooperating with China and with India also internationally. And if you can imagine in every business case that we are really narrow focusing on Europe, but in general for our industry, there's a huge potential also in the less developed parts of the world, where the where the grid is much weaker, and this kind of solutions would be even more beneficial. What is the key point for, let's say, the coal regions? Is this 70% of RES investments usually stay in the local area. This is an important thing when we are talking about the transitions where the jobs are affected. So In that sense, we see this a huge potential here. Additional potential is that we are now exploring what to do with the recycling of the PV panels and of all the technologies. This is kind of still pending issue for the future. And in some other coal regions, which is very important, is that usually they have a district heating which is powered by coal power plants, that have access, that have abundant heat. When the coal power plants are shut down, where do you get the heat? So then there's another thing where energy communities could up what we are doing with our proposals in the coal region of Šoštanj, where the thermal power plant is, how to switch the heating system to, let's say, renewable heating system, and how we could include the community to invest into the transition of this thing, of the heating. Okay, I spent around half of my time, a little bit more, for Slovenia, and then
well,
I'll now.
Tomi, I think you covered it super well, but I think you exhausted your entire time.
So okay.
You have, I mean, either we come back to Križevci at the end. Maybe if that's okay, I would give the floor to the other three speakers.
Yes, of course.
And if we have time left, we come back to Križevci. But I think you have made an excellent presentation, and I also very much appreciated the link for the coal regions.
Okay.
So we'll come back to you if there is time at the end. But thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And so I would now give the floor to Ignacio Navarro, who represents an energy community from Greece called Hyperion Energy Community. So Ignacio, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, I am a founding member of Hyperion Energy Community. But I need also to introduce to Electra Energy, Greenpeace Greece, which I am currently, for the last 5 years, acting as a project manager in these two entities, because Hyperion has been incubated by the Greenpeace Greece and Electra Energy, although now is already an independent energy community. And I will explain the roles in the next slides. So we can go to the next. So Hyperion Energy Community is one of the first citizens-led collective self-consumption energy community in Greece. It's based in Athens. We are licensing the first PV installation, which is consisting of an 80 kilowatts PV. It is connected to, will be regulated under the virtual net metering support scheme, but under the energy community, it will provide electricity to multiple households. So that's the way it works. Among the 40 members, most of them are households, with the participation of Greenpeace and WWF as members. So they are also participating in this 80 kilowatt first scheme. So we can go next. Next slide. All right. So Hyperion was incorporated last year as a non-profit energy community. It was incorporated with 5 founding members. In Greece, under the law of energy communities that was published in 2018, there are 2 categories. You can set up a for-profit energy community, and for that you need minimum 15 members. And most of the energy communities established in Greece are for-profit or looking for profit purposes. So there are very little amount of them are actually led by citizens, so focusing on citizens' participation. So one of the ideas for Greenpeace and Electra was to do a partnership and promote a business model that could be scalable and replicable and provide participation to citizens. So out of Hyperion, we have created some guidelines and toolkits on how other communities can actually replicate or adapt this model in other areas. The main objective is to provide community solar services to the members. Among them is to provide efficiency and reduction of the energy cost And one of the very intense objectives that we're gonna put in practice in the next investment is energy poverty. So the next investment that we are designing is going to have a special focus on low-income families, because it's one of the biggest energy challenges in Greece. We have more than 340,000 families that are in this category, and of course this year it's going to be worse with the increase of electricity prices. So at the same time, we expect a high demand of interest in this type of schemes, not only due to the social purposes, but also because of purely economical reasons, right? Regarding the financing of Hyperion 1, which is a 80 kilowatt scheme, the construction and development cost is around 80,000 euro. The average participation per household is between 2 and 3 kilowatts, which has been mostly financed by the members. 50% of the funding came through their own equity. The remaining amount we raised it through a peer-to-peer financing platform, Genervest, which is led by Greenpeace Greece. We fundraised last May in 1 month. Among the investors, Copernico actually participated in the financing of Hyperion. So thank you so much for that, Pedro and your team. It was, apart from a great support, it's also inspiring initiative that energy communities can invest in each other and support each other across Europe. And I want to say that Genervest as well is now becoming the first crowdfunding service provider in Greece, which is a new European policy that allows for crowdfunding cross borders. It provides the compliance and the guidelines on how platforms can provide that. So we would like to continue working on that direction, because we believe that that could also help core regions and communities in core regions to finance investments and create this market, this peer-to-peer market. Just to say that the average saving and performance per member is quite good. Virtual net metering is really attractive, and with an investment of 3,000 euro, and a member can save an average of 600 euro per year, which is has a payback under 60 years. So with proper financing conditions, it make it very easy and attractive. I think we can go to the next. So more or less to explain about the collective self-consumption in Greece, in contrast with other countries, and this topic is quite under debate right now. In Greece, there is no geographical restriction within the region where you install a collective self-consumption. So, for example, in Spain, I don't know, in Portugal or in Slovenia, in Spain is a restriction of 500 meters, and their energy cooperatives in Spain are trying to change that. In Greece, we don't have restriction, but at the same time, there are many complaints from the network administration and public services that this might be conflicting in the future. So we are looking for new solutions and new ways to do it right. I think we can go to the next slide. So here is a bit of how Hyperion look like in Genervest platform. We are actually launching a new project very soon. We can go next. About the technology focus, we are mostly working on solar. We are planning to integrate also battery storage and possibly going for some small wind turbine, but we are mostly approaching collective self-consumption and community investment. So in urban areas, solar is the easiest technology to integrate, because Hyperion is based in Athens, is what we could say an urban energy community, or it's an energy community aiming for urban impact. It's basically the governance structure is as any other cooperative, is 3 board of directors and a general assembly, and we have in our articles of incorporation we have elections yearly. Decision making is done among all members. For that also we have developed some digital tools in order to reach transparency and improve the communication among all members, because right now Hyperion is somehow depending on Greenpeace and Electra in order to self-administrate and to communicate with all the members. So we want also to overcome that barrier. I think to speak about barriers, we go to the next slide. So as I was telling, the main challenges for small energy communities in Greece, I could start telling that they are political, because in the last 1 year we saw removals of incentives for energy communities. There is not much of support, despite the fact that we are the first country in Europe having a framework on energy communities. Our next step, and with that I'm closing, is we got an agreement with Schneider Impact Fund, which has a fund for energy poverty. We are going to accelerate a 500 kilowatt scheme that will start in January fundraising. And we have built a business model where we can provide free participation to 50 households, and it will be financed by 140 middle-income households. So this photovoltaic park, we are also going to integrate it on an agriculture plot. So we will combine it with sustainable farming together with photovoltaic. So we hope to have news very soon to promote it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Ignacio. This was very interesting, and again, a super example of a startup. We have 2 more speakers, and we started receiving a lot of questions. Some of them are general for all of you, some of them are then specific. And I also wanted to announce that we will have a change of moderator. Just before 10:30, I will have to leave, and Carlo de la Libera, who is responsible for the Coal Regions in Transition Secretariat, will take over, so that you are not you know what to expect. So now I'm passing the floor to Adrian Munteanu, who is representing a first newly established energy community in Romania. Adrian, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much for your invitation and thank you for having us here. I'll talk about Cooperativa de Energie. We are the first energy cooperative in Romania, trying to be as game-changing as possible. I'll be as quick as possible, so we have time for questions. You can move to the next slide, I guess. Thanks. So some key facts about us. We started at the end of 2019 with 15 founding members. And we launched it because in Romania there was a clear lack of any way for people to get involved in the energy market, starting from own consumption. At that time, prosumers were not even legally able to mount solar panels on their houses or be able to do anything like that. And also moving on to the companies that were up in the energy market. They were like they are now, mostly state-owned and large corporations that are quite non-transparent. And we decided to change that. We have different social backgrounds in our both founding members team and also in our cooperative of about 700 members, entrepreneurs, activists, corporate employees, CEOs, and many more. And one of the main breakthroughs we had was that at the end of 2020 and start of 2021, we launched a crowdfunding campaign between our members to acquire another energy supplying company, a smaller player on the market with about 300 clients, small and medium-sized SMEs. It was a great opportunity for us to start a line of business, especially being that we are the first fully renewable energy certified supplier on the energy market in Romania. Before that, we had a couple of opportunities and projects that we wanted to get going in the renewable production side, but the COVID crisis changed our calculations, and that's why we ended up to be suppliers for the moment. We can move to the next slide. So the context of Cooperativa de Energie, like I said, was to bring real alternative to people that want to get involved in the energy market in Romania, both financially, both from an activist perspective. If they want to get their voice out, now they have an opportunity to do that inside the cooperative. Next steps. First goal that we want to achieve is to become self-sufficient, to invest in green energy production, especially PV plants that will satisfy the consumption of our own client portfolio. Hopefully, we will get working on the production side next year. We're eager to looking for opportunities there, and then hopefully we'll get as much production as possible to become independent. And also goal number 2 that we're actively working on, and it's, I must say it's quite working, is to become the first energy supplier on the Romanian market that really listens to the consumers and especially is open to prosumers. The prosumers are quite a new thing in Romania. They have been active for like 2 or 3 years until about now. But the thing is that no energy supplier on the market wants them, so to say. No energy supplier on the market is open to receive a prosumer without asking for many documents and many explanations, but we are there for them, and we have about 50 prosumers in our portfolio now that we're serving quite well and helping them with all the paperwork from signing up as prosumers in Cooperativa de Energie and also becoming authorized with the local distribution, the local DSO, which is quite a challenge. Other things that are important is that we are a European cooperative. At the time and still now, the cooperative law in Romania is quite outdated, and you can't have a big cooperative with many members on the local law. And regarding the financing, in the first stage, the cooperative was financed through our members' contributions, but we also had quite low expenses. So we really act on the co-op principles that expenses should be rational and as low as possible. In the second stage now, the supply business was acquired, and we're relying on financing offered by that business. We can move to the next slide. Talking about challenges, this was quite the biggest, growing an energy community in a volatile business context, especially now, with the energy prices going up, and we had quite a rough year. And the second one was proving that this model, especially in the crowdfunding campaign, proving that this way of being financed by your members could work in Romania. Especially, it was a challenge to have a crowdfunding campaign that had the purpose to acquire an energy supplier. We really thought a lot about this, and I think it would be much easier for a PV plant to be financed by our members. But experience taught us that you can also finance, if your members believe in it and you're transparent enough, even business acquisitions. And then you can move to the next slide. So this is quite a success we're having. We're quite honored to be able to serve our customers as best as possible. And one thing that we noticed is that the cooperative has really been a driver in making people understand more about the energy market. Because in Romania, that was quite a challenge, because the consumers were only seen as passive people that pay their bills and nothing more. But now, with them being able to change their energy supplier, we see in the cooperative there is quite a lot of interest in understanding also how the energy market works. Another thing that we are doing, and we are the pioneers here in Romania, is moving people to a variable kind of tariff. Here we've had only fixed tariffs since like forever, and what we're doing now is making people, especially with prosumers, that's a good market point for us, making them understand that if they change their consumption profile to best fit the renewable energy production they do, they can see a real savings in their pockets. And that's a thing that no other supplier in Romania does. For the next slide. Yeah, for the future work, what future work we're working now in the present is the development, acquiring of functional photovoltaic plant and becoming renewable energy producers. Like I said, become self-sufficient. And also what we're looking for later, in a year, 2 or 3 years, hopefully, is to develop programs and frameworks for energy efficiency and energy poverty. Because like we say here a lot, the cheapest kilowatt is the one that you don't consume. So that's why we think that cooperatives should really aim to, to help them understand how they can reduce their energy needs. So for the last slide, the services. So yeah, you can become a member with as low as 20 euros. You have the right to vote in the co-op. For the renewable energy supply, you can change your contract to Cooperativa de Energie in like 10 minutes. We made it the easiest process on the market. And also we aim to be a one-stop shop for prosumers. We are the only energy supplier that has a fast onboarding process for them. We pay a higher feed-in tariff for the produced energy than the other players on the market. And also we offer all the information so they can reduce their costs. This is it. Thank you very much. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much, Adrian. A super inspirational presentation. So we have now our last speaker in the session, and I will also hand over to Carlo for the moderation. And I would also like to say that afterwards we do the Q&A, and afterwards, before the end, and that's an important point, we have Martin Eibel from Cinea to tell you about concrete funding opportunities other than the Just Transition Fund. So please stay until the very end, because the money comes at the end and it's important. Now the floor, it goes to Ioana Theodosiou, who works for a think tank in Greece that is actually linking energy communities to the coal regions. So Ioana, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Ioana Theodosiou from the Green Tank. We are a non-profit environmental think tank, the first of its kind in Greece. I have a short presentation to provide a broad overview of the status of energy communities and just transition in Greece's two lignite regions and offer recommendations for this experience that we hope will be useful also for other coal regions across the EU. In fact, with rising fossil fuel prices leading to skyrocketed energy costs, the ability of citizens to generate their own energy from renewables through energy communities especially is particularly appealing. Next slide, please. The basis for the development of energy communities in Greece is a law adopted under the previous Greek government in 2018. It outlines what is an energy community, who can be part of it, what are the activities an energy community can undertake, the types of energy communities, Ignacio also mentioned for-profit or non-for-profit, and the process of establishment of an energy community. Next slide, please. Since 2018, several legislative changes have been made in order to address some fundamental problems that arose from the implementation, namely cases where RES companies exploited the new law either to bypass steps in environmental permitting or to avoid the competition with peers and to secure generous feed-in tariffs. Some issues were resolved through recent changes, some remain unresolved. However, one important consequence is that the legislative environment for energy communities in Greece has become unstable, thus creating barriers for their further development. Next. Despite the frequent changes in legislation and owing to the solid basis that the 2018 law provided, energy communities in Greece have actually progressed, and this is also true in the lignite regions. Let's see the numbers. Today, 1,017 energy communities have been established in Greece. At the moment, 677 projects operate with a total capacity of 466 megawatts, and also additional requests for permits have been submitted. Now turning to Greece's lignite regions, we see that in the region of Western Macedonia, the main lignite region in Greece, there are already 175 energy communities and 686 projects are planned. At the moment, 43 projects from 11 energy communities have been established, accounting for almost 25 megawatts of installed capacity. Progress is more limited in Megalopolis. Megalopolis is the second and smaller lignite region in Greece. 18 energy communities have been established with 66 projects planned. At the moment, only 3 projects from 2 energy communities operate with a capacity of 1.3 megawatts. In total, however, the share of RES energy community project capacity requested in overall RES capacity in lignite regions is 30.3%. That's higher than the corresponding percentage for Greece as a whole, which stands at 20.5%. That shows a lot of interest in lignite regions for RES projects by energy communities, but at the same time implies a potential grid availability problem. Next, please. Yes, the funding. One of the distinct characteristics that have contributed to this situation is the significant funding for energy communities and especially for lignite regions. First of all, Greece was the first member state in the European Union to channel part of the public revenue from the auctioning of CO2 allowances for the just transition of the lignite regions, starting from 2018. During that first year, more than 10% of the national just transition funds, 3.5 million euros, were marked for the support of energy communities in the lignite regions. Since then, while allocation for the just transition has been secured, it is not clear whether they will be directed to energy communities. In fact, even the 3.5 millions have not yet been absorbed. Turning now to the European resources, to the Just Transition Fund, Greece recently submitted the territorial Just Transition plans. In these plans, energy communities are eligible for funding. To be more specific, the Just Transition Fund can be used to cover part of the installation costs for RES-based power generation systems, RES-based heating systems, energy storage infrastructure, and energy efficiency projects from energy communities. This is a significant and positive development in our opinion. Next slide, please. However, several barriers remain to further develop energy communities. First of all, there are state aid issues unresolved, blocking the deployment of funds. This is an important problem and there is need to resolve the issue since the energy communities and especially the non-profit communities created by individual citizens and local authorities need this type of support. Second, the Renewable Energy Directive and the Internal Electricity Market Directive have not yet been transposed. It is expected that the transposition will lead to more changes relating to the definitions of energy communities. Third, market distortions continue to exist at the expense of non-profit energy communities. And finally, on the technical side, it appears that there is limited grid availability for energy community projects. Even in the lignite regions, where one would assume an abundance of electricity room, we still have problem. However, it seems that this is occupied by larger projects, leaving actually no room for energy communities. Next, please. So, to conclude, energy communities constitute an essential tool for a truly just transition in lignite regions. And this is because they ensure local participation in the transition, but at the same time, they also help people to reach the economic benefits from the energy transition directly. However, support is needed. We have to make sure that RES energy community investments are included in the territorial just transition plans. This is the very first step in order to render energy communities eligible for funding from the Just Transition Fund. Then regarding funding, we need to utilize every every source we have, European and national, in favor of local communities, set tax incentives and lending facilities. But we also need to create state aid schemes for non-profit energy communities that aim to cover their own energy needs. Since energy communities can provide fundamental support to local communities in transition to tackle energy poverty issues, it makes perfect sense and is fully consistent with the term just transition to demand a share of the funding to be dedicated for the financial support of energy communities. And since the cost of renewables continues to drop due to progress in technology, it makes most sense to support renewable projects in terms of installation costs and not in the form of feed-in tariffs supporting their operation. Moreover, we need to set specific quantitative targets for the development of energy communities in the national energy and climate plans and give incentives for cooperation of large risk companies with energy communities through shareholding. This has been successful in several member states, like Denmark, for example. In Greece too, the Public Power Corporation has committed to offering 5% of the investment cost of its large 2.5 gigawatts PV system that is in the process of being installed as we speak, to citizens and energy communities in the two lignite regions, but it remains to be seen. And finally, we need to protect energy communities from unfair competitive processes. We need to ensure equal terms of participation in the energy market for them. Next, please. Okay, that's from me. The next days we are going to publish an overview of the status of energy communities in the lignite regions in Greece. It will also be available in English and to you all. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. As mentioned by Adela before, I'm Carlo Della Libera, and I am a part of the team managing the Secretariat of the Initiative for Core Regions in Transition. First of all, let me thank all the speakers for their very, very interesting presentation and very inspiring. I think there's already, I see quite some questions about it and to show the interest on this matter. I will present this last segment of the session that starts with the possibility from the audience to ask questions to the speakers, to the case studies that we heard about just before. So if everybody is ready, I think we can start with a few questions. And there I see some very interesting ones that have been maybe challenging somehow, but I think are very, very spot on given also the time. I like to remind everyone that you can ask questions through Slido. You just need to join the app or the web application of slido.com and enter the code CREAT Energy. There are already some that have been posted during the time of the presentations, and I would like to start with one that, and I would like to ask it to everyone. So perhaps we can make a small tour de table on this question. The first question is about energy price. So how have energy communities been doing price-wise in the current electricity price crisis? It's quite a spot-on question given these times. And given this element of energy price, do you see that there are more people are interested in investing in energy community in this context? Maybe we can start with I don't know if someone wants to volunteer. Otherwise, I give the floor to Pedro.
So hi. So the question, what was the impact of prices on Copernic, the energy co-op? It's been terrible. It's been to the point, just so people realize how bad it was, since the last 3 or 4 months, 3 to 4, I think by now I think 4 of our, let's say, competitors in terms of the energy providers in Portugal have exited the market. So that's how bad it has been. With us, obviously, it's been very difficult because when we are providing electricity, we have to cover our costs. We're not big enough to do any type of price hedging and kind of other financial architecture. So basically, we buy spot the electricity in the market and we sell it to our users. So it's been very challenging, and we've had to change the tariff structure that we used to have, and we've explained that to members. The reaction from the members has been amazing. With a few exceptions, everyone stayed in the cooperative, and everyone was willing to support, obviously on a temporary basis, but to support these higher prices. And in fact, we've called for even some more investment into the participation in the co-op, and that call has actually generated quite some money. So we're struggling, but I think we'll manage to get over the hurdle. In terms of our projects that we put up for investment, if anything, they've gotten more popular. So we have limited evidence of that because because of the pandemic, we've only managed to put one investment up for investment, one project up for investment. But the same pattern applied. As soon as we put it on for investment, it was immediately picked up. So we got something like 45,000 euros for investment in very, very short term.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you very much. Maybe we can hear something also from Romania, Adrian.
Yeah, like Pedro said, it was quite horrifying here also. The main challenge was because we acquired an existing energy supplier was double, so to say, because on one hand we had to make the business survive, and on the other hand we had to keep the customers that the supplier had, about 200 customers. And it was quite a tough negotiation. We're in a better place now, but we are also looking at the state and government decisions to subsidize, especially for the business side, the tariffs, because the SMEs will not pay the taxes, the DSO taxes and all that, but the government will pass the money on to the suppliers for those. And we are quite looking for that. Not sure if the government will be able to pay on time. But we're working on it. We had our members on it. It helped that we had these variable tariffs and not some fixed tariffs. But yeah, it was quite challenging, and it continues to be challenging. Hopefully on next year, after the winter is over, the things will start to stabilize and give us more space to develop other projects.
Thank you, Adrian. And maybe now we can hear also about the same questions also for our Greek representative, Ignacio. You wanna start from Greece, actually?
Yes. Well, I cannot give the same feedback from the side of Hyperion because it's a recently started energy community. We are a small number of members. Although we have a regulatory framework in Greece, there are no such thing as energy cooperative supplier. We have energy communities, but we don't have alternative cooperative supplier in our market that could give us this information, right? However, I've been speaking with some of the energy commercializing energy companies providers. Is keeping them quite occupied towards the next 2 months, especially because we have also subsidies on the electricity. The information to the consumers. Consumers are quite concerned about this crisis. In the meantime, what we have here from other partners is that there's going to be increased demand for self-consumption solutions in the coming months due to this crisis. So it's a sort of window of opportunity for energy communities, not only to offer something economically better, but also to make the connection with fossil fuels, increasing these prices and promoting energy communities as the main solution.
Thank you, Ignacio. I don't know if Tommy and Joanna, you have something to add? No. Okay, I think there's another question that actually I was also thinking about it, and I think it's very, very interesting, and I read the question. So, what is the single biggest challenge that energy community faces, especially linked to coal regions? What is the biggest challenge for their development? Maybe we can start again from Pedro, then we keep the same order.
Well, I'm in an odd situation because Portugal does not anymore have any coal regions. But I can speak from the Portuguese experience is that perhaps the biggest challenge right now is the legislation itself. So in our case, the transposition of the directives has been it's taken a long time. We were heavily engaged in it, but when it came out, there was still a various number of questions that haven't been solved. And it's not just the transposition, but it's also the local regulation. So issues like the sharing of costs across members, the openness of the DSO to cooperate with us, the fact that we were late on, for instance, in the distribution of smart meters in Portugal, so we have very little smart meter coverage, and we can't do anything about it as an energy co-op. All of these put pretty much unsurmountable, almost obstacles to putting together an energy community.
Thank you, Pedro. So that I'd like to ask Joanna also the same question.
Okay, yes, I mentioned something before. I think the biggest challenge is the unfair competition from some RES companies trying to exploit the favorable institutional framework and the high feed-in tariffs for energy communities. At the moment, we need to empower citizens to participate in the transition. Energy communities is a great tool for that, but we also have to secure equality and democracy. And that's a challenge when moving from coal to RES. I don't know if that's.
Thank you, Joanna.
Keep going, but
no, but I'm afraid we'll need to leave it for another session, yes, which I hope will take place. And I asked the same question to Tommy. Tommy, the biggest challenge.
The biggest challenge in let's say establishing energy communities and new business models and installing new technologies and everything, I would say, is bureaucracy. Is just for example, to install just, I don't know, energy and this battery and energy community, I mean the battery, there was we had, let's say, action list of 90 steps, 90. So I mean, this is like this is not just plug and play. Let's just do it. And also for all the other how to say investments that we made, there's so many effort to be done, and we were lucky that we had a project that was financing this. But I cannot imagine having an energy community, somebody investing so much of his free time, and even if he would have the free time to invest, you need to have a knowledge about it. So there's a big gap in that, you know, that we need to really streamline the whole process and make it user friendly in that sense. And if we achieve that, then, you know, the doors are open. We are already profitable in so many business cases that we envisioned, but unfortunately, you know, I would call it not acquisition cost, but let's say setting up cost is I would say too high at the moment in that sense.
Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tommy. We don't have much time, but I would like to ask all of you one last question. More than a question is actually, we talked about challenges, but also I think it would be nice to if you can share what you think is the key success factor for energy community. What really made a difference in your case, or for other communities you're aware of. Really, one sentence each. and you can start from Ignacio.
Yeah, I think there are many, but if I have to focus in one, I think it's the feeling of cohesion, or to be because we started as one of the first, and we brought so many organizations together. The feeling that everybody was doing the same thing separately, and suddenly we brought the opportunity or the vehicle to gather everybody and do it together. And the vehicle was an energy community. So we were all of us working on conferences and promoting and exploring, and suddenly we found a way we can invest everybody in the same project, and that was amazing.
Very nice. I love this feeling of cohesion. It's very nice. Adrian, what about you?
Transparency and the clear communication with our members really helped. When it's surprising for them to see that you're telling them everything. It really does, and it helps a lot in building trust.
Thank you, Adrian. Pedro. I'm afraid you're muted, though. No words.
Sorry. Yeah, I would say transparency and full disclosure, both to our members. So, coming back to the price crisis, the fact that we managed to navigate that was really about being fully transparent about what we were doing, what were the solutions that we're trying to achieve. Same for the energy community. It's being transparent to the potential members about both the opportunities, but also the barriers that we're finding along the way.
Thank you, Pedro. Joanna, one sentence.
Okay, in one sentence, I think favorable institutional framework really helped. Although we are not there in terms of success, there are problems still. I talked about them before. And I think there are also two more important things: funding, available funding for citizens projects, and also regarding transition, including energy community projects and investments in the territorial just transition plans. That's something that in the planning process succeeded in Greece, but it remains to be seen how it will be implemented.
Thank you, Joanna. Tommy, I leave the floor to you for the last sentence.
I'll just say two words: motivation and will.
Very good words. Thank you, Tommy. And thank you for all all your answers. There were much more questions, but we will make sure that we will reach you so that we can collect also the answer and disseminate these towards the co-regency in transition community. The Q&A session ends here, but and I have the pleasure now to introduce the last presentation of this session. Over the past 3 days, we've heard a lot about the importance of involving communities in the just transition and in the preparation of the just transition plans. And energy community are a great tool to help the local acceptance of renewable energy installations and the promotion of energy efficiency, and also to make sure that investment benefits the local community. Projects related to the creation and promotion of energy communities are supported now through the LIFE program, and specifically the Clean Energy Transition program within LIFE that builds on the experience from Horizon 2020 projects. Specifically for core regions, dedicated funding are provided within the LIFE program, and I'm very glad to introduce you Martin Eibel from the European Climate Infrastructure and Environmental Executive Agency that will present to all of you these opportunities. Martin, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carlo, a lot for giving me the floor, and a good morning also to all the listeners. I think two things up front. I mean, we are quite proud here from LIFE, who's preceding the Horizon 2020 Energy Efficiency Funding, to have funded some of the work which was presented this morning by the speakers. You heard from some Horizon 2020 funded projects which were supporting energy communities. So that is basically us who provide the funding. And secondly, I think this presentation might be also interesting to all of you working in the coal regions and also the energy communities, because a lot of the EU funding is dedicated to, get basically the transition in terms of infrastructure, installations, and so on, supporting the costs of those. I mean, live clean energy transition is different and complementary in this sense, because before you actually do the bricks work, you need to do the brain work, and that's where we come in. So live clean energy transition is actually funding, supporting you in developing the projects, in establishing the energy communities, in helping you with the clean energy transition in your coal region, in the kind of brainworks. But before I come to that, let me present a little bit what we do, where we come from. So next slide, please. As Carlo mentioned, I'm working at the newly established European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency, which was established by the European Commission. So we are part of the European Commission, if you like, and mandated to implement a number of funding programs, which you can see here on the slide. One of them is the LIFE program, which I'm working in. But I also wanted to point out a few other programs very briefly, which are of high relevance to you in the coal regions. There's, for example, in-house managed just transition mechanism, the third pillar, the public sector loan facility, which is managed by SINEA. So that's the 1.5 billion grants facility plus 10 billion of loans in combination with the loans here. So that's managed by SINEA. We have got the renewable energy financing mechanism. We have got the innovation fund and Horizon Europe, which is focusing on climate, energy, and mobility. So all these programs are very relevant to what you are doing in terms of bringing your regions towards a pathway towards a clean energy transition. Next slide, please. Overall, the SINEA is managing 55 billion euros in terms of grant money. And the SINEA, as we call it in short, has got also a nickname in principle, which is the European Green Deal Agency, because all the programs you saw before are really supporting the implementation of the European Green Deal. But let's go a little bit more to the micro level here now, into the LIFE program. As Carlo mentioned, there is a new strand in the LIFE program, which is the European Environment and Climate Action Program for the last many, many years. We have been joining the LIFE program now for this multi-annual financial framework 2021-2027, and have established the Clean Energy Transition sub-program in the LIFE program. The aim is really to build upon the experiences which we have gained over the last years, in particular from the Horizon 2020 energy efficiency program that was supporting the promotion and uptake of energy efficiency solutions. We're widening the scope here a little bit to include renewable energy as well. And you can see the objective that we want to remove market barriers. We want to mobilize investments, improve the skills, raising awareness and empowering consumers and citizens in the clean energy transition. So that's all really a lot of brain work, if you like, which needs to happen before we actually get our energy systems towards decarbonization. And that's what we try to do in the clean energy transition. Next slide, please. In this sub-program, Clean Energy Transition, we have currently an open call for proposals, and that's why it's very timely to present to you now the funding opportunity. So we have the call open with 18 topics, different topics. The deadline is the 12th of January 2022, so there's still a little bit of time to prepare a good proposal. Normally, as you can see also, we are not infrastructure projects. I mean, our project budgets range between 1 to even 3 million, I would say, but on average 1 to 2 million. And the funding rate is also importantly quite high here for the clean energy transition, 95%. So that's quite a good funding rate. And that's also new in LIFE. If you were familiar with the LIFE program, the co-funding rates were rather lower in this case. And for the clean energy transition, we have negotiated a higher funding rate because we really have very dedicated and defined call topics, these 18 call topics, which you have to propose a proposal to. And it's not as open as it used to be in other areas of the LIFE program, where you had just a very general line to submit proposals. Here on the LIFE Clean Energy Transition, it's very well defined. It defined call topics. Next slide, please. And I wanted to really highlight actually one topic, which is a dedicated topic. Since we are talking here on the Just Transition platform meeting, I wanted to present to you really our dedicated topic on coal regions. And as you can see here from the title, it's community-driven clean energy transition in coal, peat, and oil shale regions. And what are we looking here for? There are two elements, if you like, to this topic, what we are looking for. One is that we do want to trigger local and regional investment projects and to make best use of the Just Transition Mechanism funds. As you heard over the last days, there's a lot of billions available for coal regions. And we want to also make sure that some of that money is really going into the clean energy transition. So we want to maximize the spending of the Just Transition mechanisms in the area of energy efficiency and renewable energy solutions. The other big element really here is, again, which you find in the title, the community driven. It's really very important, and again, what the speakers earlier this morning mentioned, but also which was mentioned already in the opening the day before yesterday, you have to take the citizens, the community with you. So what we are looking here as well is that we are providing funding support also for you to mobilize your stakeholders, your citizens, your communities in the clean energy transition. So we're looking for bottom-up activities and for engaging local communities and citizens in order to develop and bring forward energy efficiency and renewable energy solutions. And if you go to the next slide, that can mean several things. And that's non-exhaustive. So if you have other ideas fitting into this topic, you're also welcome to submit. But there's a list of things we would expect to support through the LIFE Clean Energy Transition program. For example, to have more alignment of local regional strategies with the clean energy transition and strengthening the implementation by deploying the support from the Just Transition mechanism. So absorbing the funds which are available for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. Building the capacity and understanding amongst key stakeholders and local communities for the clean energy transition. A lot of times it was mentioned that in coal regions, the main infrastructure and economic opportunities are around the coal mining or energy production stemming from coal. So it's important to explain the opportunities and the opportunities in terms of social, economic, but also environmental benefits to the communities. And that's also what we would like to support here. Another big topic is alleviating energy poverty and developing sustainable energy project pipelines is also something which we would very much want to see as a concrete outcome of the funding support we provide to you. So ultimately, we do want to tap into the Just Transition mechanisms of the large funds of the Just Transition mechanisms, but it sounds quite complicated. It takes some thinking really how to do that. Apart from the legal frameworks that will be also developed by the member states in collaboration with the Commission. But I mean, in order to tap into these funding opportunities from the Just Transition mechanism, it takes some thinking, some bringing together stakeholders, some mobilization of stakeholders So in that sense, that's where we come in to support you, to bring together these stakeholders, to prepare projects that could benefit from the Just Transition Mechanism funding, but also other funding support. And that's why this topic is particularly important. Next slide, please. Apart from this community-driven clean energy transition, we have a lot of other topics which I would recommend you to have a look at. I can only mention very briefly a few. One I would like to highlight is really the one on energy communities, which is developing support mechanisms for energy communities and other citizens-led initiatives in the field of sustainable energy. So this topic is as well open as the other ones until the 12th of January. So if you've got an idea here, then you're very welcome to submit. There are other topics such as supporting local authorities in their clean energy transition plans. Energy poverty is a big topic, as you can see, and we also have something which is technical assistance to private and public project promoters for sustainable energy investments. So the project development and assistance, as you can see here. And all the 18 live topics can be accessed here through the link. Sorry, you have to copy paste, but you can also find it through the funding and tenders portal. Maybe just a last word here. You can also find in the presentation slides here a lot of more information. So once this presentation is shared, we have a lot of backup slides, which I'm not going to present now, but which give you a lot of more details on these topics, which you can see here. Next slide, please. Yes, next slide. I'm rushing through now. Give me another couple of minutes. So you have here again links to how to write an excellent proposal on the clean energy transition, and you find, of course, all information on our SINEA webpage, call for proposals. So you find also videos, recorded info sessions, and presentation slides. All the guidance is there. Next slide. And finally, if you want to know more about the programs managed by SINEA on sustainable energy, please sign up to our Clean Energy newsletter, which comprises news from all these funding programs managed by SINEA on sustainable energy. And next slide. With that, I'd like to thank you, and I would encourage you to make use of this funding support in order to be prepared for absorbing also the Just Transition Mechanism funds. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you very much. We will close the session. We're a couple of minutes late, but almost there. And I would like to thank all the speakers for the very, very interesting presentation. And we heard a lot about very interesting concept that goes beyond an energy transition. We talked about democracy, about citizen-driven initiatives, transparency, and I hope that this presentation also will help inspire other communities to join the energy community family, and maybe also thanks to the funding made available by SINEA. So I really hope that we will hear some more news about this, and I'm looking forward for another session, maybe in another working group meetings about the energy community topics. The Just Transition platform meeting continues. I invite you to join the last two parallel sessions that will take place at 11:30. And last but not least, of course, the high-level roundtable with the Executive Vice Presidents Timmermans and regional and local representative that will take place today at 3 and will be the closing session of the Just Transition platform meeting. I think this is all for now. For any questions, you can contact, of course, the Secretariat for Coal Regions in Transition Initiative, and we'll be happy to provide you answers or to put you in contact with possible energy community that have the answers to your questions. Thank you very much again, and I wish you a great day.